So we have come to the last chapter of the book of Ruth. We're thankful for how we've been so far, the story so far. We started in chapter 1 looking at a man called Elimelech who made a move to leave Bethlehem, the house of bread. And we saw how the Lord used his wife to make that move back to Bethlehem. In chapter 2, we begin to see at the beginning of the barley harvest how God began to provide for this widow and a daughter-in-law. We see the hand of the Lord at work in ordering their steps and daily provision for them. Then we came to chapter 3, a strong one and a tough one. We saw how Naomi came up with a plan to bring forth with the goal of bringing rest to Ruth. And we came to a point where we looked at something that most of us might not have considered, and I have not thought about it in many years, is how Ruth was able to take down a shawl and go home with 6 measures of barley. Whether she carried it on her shoulder or carried it in front of her, we don't know. But what we know is that she went home full. She went home glad. So far, we've seen a lot of themes screaming at us from this book. We've seen the Exodus-like movement here, how that the Lord is redeeming his people. We see the covenant. We've seen harvest. We've seen the kindness of God displayed in the book of Ruth over and over again, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. And we see the wisdom of God in what Naomi did. And so I want to encourage us in our personal study of Ruth to go over this thing again and read it through the lens of these themes that we have seen, the kindness of God. Number one thing that we have not talked about so far, we're going to see here now, is redemption. Chapter 4, we begin to encounter what the whole book of Ruth is about. Up to now, I've not explained or described or defined what the word redeemer means. But I believe that chapter 4 helps us to see clearly not just what God has been doing in history or what God was doing at that time, but what God has done even up to now. So join me in opening your Bibles to Ruth chapter 4. I'm going to read the whole chapter, and we'll consider 3 things today as we bring this book to a close this Lord's Day. Ruth chapter 4, I read from verse 1. Now Boaz had gone up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the Redeemer of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, "Turn aside, friend, sit down here." And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, "Sit down here." So they sat down. Then he said to the Redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. So I thought I would tell you of it and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not, tell me that I may know, for there is no one besides you to redeem it, and I come after you." And he said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "The day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the dead, in order to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance." Then the Redeemer said, "I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption yourself for I cannot redeem it. Now, this was a custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm a transaction, the one drew off his sandal and gave it to the other, and this was the manner of attesting in Israel. So when the Redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it for yourself," he drew off his sandal. Then Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "You are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon. Also Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have bought to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day." Then all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephrathah and be renowned in Bethlehem. And may your house be like the house of Perez, who Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring that the Lord will give you by this young woman." So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. Then the women said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord who has not left you this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him." Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. And the women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, "A son has been born to Naomi." They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Ram. Ram fathered Aminadab. Aminadab fathered Nahshon. Nahshon fathered Salmon. Salmon fathered Boaz. Boaz fathered Obed. And Obed fathered Jesse. And Jesse fathered David. For those who are hearing this for the first time, we started a series some weeks ago on the book of Ruth, and the sermon title was "Is a Worthy Redeemer," and this is part 4 of that. What a story. 3 things we're going to look at today. We're going to look at the plan that Boaz put in place, the union, and that last part of the whole, last 4 verses, which is the genealogy there. Now, what's the setting of this? The plan that Boaz put in place. We saw that Boaz went to the gate and called the elders. So the setting was a place of the gate, just close outside to the city. And what happens at the gate is a place where judicial matters are settled. And it's also a place where sometimes transactions take place. But more importantly, it's a place where judicial matters are taken care of. At the end of chapter 3, Naomi said of Boaz that this man will not rest. He will make sure that this matter is resolved. And truly, that's what Boaz did. He took the matter and took it on. So it seems that the writer is helping us to see that Naomi's plan was more like a springboard, was something to encourage Boaz to go ahead. So we need to highlight here the faith of Naomi and the kindness of Ruth, because both together helped Boaz to come up with a plan himself. Now, as Boaz walked to the gate, what happened? We saw that the nearest kinsman came by. God's providence at work. And this same providence we've seen from the beginning of this book. The providence of Ruth, God working, bringing Ruth to the field of Boaz. He said to his mother-in-law, she said to her mother-in-law rather, that she was going to go glean, and she found herself in chapter 2 in the field of Boaz. Now, Boaz also has decided this time, I'm going to resolve this matter. What happened? The nearest kinsman walked by. What is providence? This is God's love in governing and sustaining His creation. We see the sovereignty of God displayed in providence. And it's a reminder to us that nothing happens by chance or accident. So what does this mean for you and I? I love the way R.C. Sproul puts it. He said, what providence means for us is this, that not only that we owe to God our creation or the beginning of our existence, but it is by His providence that I and you and I can continue to exist moment by moment. If God did not sustain our life for 1 second, we would perish from the face of the earth. So whatever is out there is not only made by God, but is kept in existence by the power of His sustaining providence. And what does this mean? It means that you and I can have confidence that when we step out of this place, the Lord is in control. That when you step out of your house, the Lord is in control. That when you go to work and come back, the Lord is in control. Also, you and I can have hope that at the end of all this matter, no matter what goes on around us, no matter what is happening there, chaos on the right, chaos on the left, we have hope that at the end of it all, the Lord will keep His own. But on the other hand, for those who are not part of God's people, what does providence mean for them? It means that the Lord is against them. It means that the Lord is warning them at the same time. Yes, God is sustaining His creation, but for creation to be called to the Lord, for creation to turn to the Lord. In the context of the law, the kinsman redeemer is responsible for providing, protecting all that his dead brother had, and also, most importantly, to perpetuate the name of the dead. Now, how did Boaz come up with this plan? Or how did he execute it? What did he do? In verse 3 to 5, we see Boaz invite this man and say, hey, let's turn aside and sit down. And the guy sat down. And Boaz grabbed 10 elders and asked them to turn aside. And they sat down. And what does that tell you about Boaz? It tells you that Boaz is an honorable man. The elders calling their elders' attention shows that he's an honorable man. He's a man that is well respected. And Boaz said something about the land. Now, up to this chapter, we've never heard anything about a land. Is it possible that Naomi was selling her husband's property in order to take care of herself and Ruth? We don't know. It's possible that's what's going on. But for some reason, Boaz had this knowledge. Everyone did not have it. And Boaz said, hey, kinsman, there's a land for you from Naomi. He's our brother's wife. It's your right to redeem it. Go ahead and redeem it. Will you? He said, oh, yeah, of course I will redeem it. And the guy looked at it and said, oh, this is wonderful. I have an addition. The redeeming of that land is an addition to him. Then Boaz added this. Wait a minute, don't be too fast. There's something else. The day you redeem this land, you acquire. Now, Boaz did not say you redeem Ruth. Boaz said you acquire Ruth the Moabite. And the man who had been so glad to buy and add this land to his inheritance said, wait a minute. I cannot redeem it for myself. Why? Because if I do that, I will impair my own inheritance. What does redemption truly mean? What is missing here for this man? Buying the land, acquiring root, and perpetuating the name of the dead. These are the three things that Boaz asked him to do. Of these three things, he wanted just one of it. This plan here, open our eyes, we can see what redemption truly means. This kinsman redeemer said, I don't want to impair my own inheritance. What he's saying actually is this: it is not about my brother's name, it is about my own name. I have to protect my own name. I have to protect my own family. I don't care what God's commandment says. I don't care about God's people. It is about my own inheritance. But what does redemption say? Redemption says, buy, acquire, perpetuate the name of the dead. The overarching message of the book of Ruth extends beyond just highlighting God's plan of salvation through Christ. And it extends beyond the unfolding of the redemption of God. The book of Ruth reveals to us here the purpose of redemption. And that is what this close relative missed there. The purpose of redemption. What is that purpose? Why do you want to redeem? He missed the last part, and that last part is the name of the dead. At the very beginning of this chapter, of this book, we've seen plans. Elimelech came up with a plan to leave Bethlehem. What did he do? It led to death. Naomi came up with her own plan to go back. What happened? It led to provision. Ruth's plan to go glean. What was the result? Provision and kindness. Naomi's second plan to bring rest for Ruth. What did it lead to? It led to what? Rest for Ruth. Boaz now came up with a plan of redemption. And how is it working out? It's working out exactly, not only as they thought about, but exactly as the Lord has ordained it to be. And we can parallel this with the plan of redemption that God accomplished in Christ. Paul says in Romans 5, verse 6 to 8, for while we were still weak, at the right time Christ died for the ungodly. For one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person one would dare even to die. But God shows his love for us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. This is what the close relative missed. That redemption is not about acquiring your own inheritance. It's about sacrifice. And what did Christ do? He bought us. 1 Corinthians 6:19. Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. For our sake, he made him to be sin who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. 2 Corinthians 5:21. Sacrifice. So what's the purpose of redemption? The purpose of redemption is that there will be a people who are holy unto the Lord. The purpose of redemption is that you and I we become the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. The purpose of redemption is that, Lord, you and I can become a royal priesthood. The purpose of redemption was never about the land. The purpose of redemption that Boaz put forward to this kinsman redeemer that he missed was about the name of God in Israel. So how do we see this? Or how should we look at this? How should we respond to the purpose of redemption, having known why God has accomplished this? I think the question is this: do I live as one who is righteous? Do I live as one who is the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus? Do I even believe that we are all righteousness of God in Christ Jesus? Do you believe that you have been called a holy nation, set apart for God? Do we believe in the purpose of redemption, why we were redeemed? And do we live as one who has been redeemed? The plan continues. And when the kinsman redeemer refused and said, "You redeem it," what did Boaz do? Boaz said there, "Everyone, you bear witness that I have redeemed this. I bought the land. I've acquired Ruth, the Moabite, the foreigner. And I am going to perpetrate the name of the dead." And there was an exchange, a sandal exchange. Now, in this context, it was more of a transaction. But in Deuteronomy 25, when this was talked about, it was more about a brother who refuses to redeem his brother's wife. But here it was used as more of a transaction, as a seal and attestation, like you signing a contract, saying that I have done this. But truly, I think it's a shame in disguise to that close redeemer, saying, "Shame on you for not doing your work, but I have done it." But one striking thing there is this. Boaz said in verse 9 and 10, and I read, "Then Boaz said to the elders and all the people, 'You are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech, and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon, and also Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have bought to be my wife, to perpetrate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers, and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day.'" One striking thing there is he kept on saying, all. And that is clear to us that redemption is not just half, it is complete. He said all was redeemed. Similarly, Christ's work of redemption was a complete work. He redeemed us, soul and body. That was why Paul's argument in Romans 6 was valid, when Paul said that we know that our old self was crucified with him in order that the body of sin might be brought to nothing, so that we will no longer be enslaved to sin. For one who has died has been set free from sin. Now we have died with Christ. We believe that we will also live with him. We know that Christ, being raised from the dead, will never die again. Why? Because death has no dominion over him. Paul's argument in Romans 6, verse 6 to 11 is this, that our redemption is complete, soul and body. We will rise with Christ again. Brothers and sisters, are you living for today or you're living for that future? Are you looking forward to that resurrection? Are we living as pilgrims here on earth, waiting for that resurrection of our body? For our redemption was not just halfway. Christ redeemed us, soul and body. And brothers, I want to kind of put a warning here for us. It is dangerous for us to think that this body, this temple, will not be redeemed. Why is it dangerous for us? Because we put a limitation on what Christ had done. Our redemption is a complete redemption. Our salvation is a complete salvation. He had redeemed our soul, and our body will be resurrected with a new body. As Paul put it in Corinthians, we will have a new glorious body. And we should look forward to that. Now we turn to the blessing of the elders and the people. The elders and the people together blessed Boaz. And let's look at this blessing, because this blessing is prophetic in nature. And this is how they put a blessing in verse 11 and 12. Then all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephrathah and be renowned in Bethlehem." Now, wait a minute. They didn't say, may the Lord make Ruth, the Moabite, like Rachel and Leah. They said, may the Lord make the woman. Could it be that all the elders of Israel and the people are prophetically anticipating that this will be the seed of the woman that will bruise the head of the serpent? Could it be that they are saying, like when Noah was born and the father looked at him and said that out of the ground that the Lord has caused, this one will bring us relief from our walk? Could it be that they are looking at Boaz and said, this is the woman that will bring forth that seed that will reverse the curse that's upon us, rather? They said the woman. It seems that this blessing was more of a prayer, that maybe Yahweh, would it please you to make this union bring forth a seed that will reverse Genesis 3. There was an anticipation for that seed. Brothers and sisters, do we pray in anticipation for the coming of the Lord, the second coming? This was a prayer in anticipation for the first coming. Are we praying in anticipation for the second coming? And in verse 12, they went on to say, may he be, and may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. Now, why did they compare this to Rachel, Leah, and Tamar? How did Rachel and Leah build the house of Israel? Through their seed. And to Boaz, they said, may you act worthily in Ephrathah, Bethlehem. But you, O Bethlehem, Ephrathah, who are little to be among the clans of Judah, from you shall come forth for me one who will be what? A ruler in Israel. Micah chapter 5 verse 2 said his coming forth will be from of old, from ancient days. Ruth this chapter brings everything home. There is a lot of anticipation for the coming of Christ in this blessing. And they said, like Tamar, the house of Perez. What happened to Judah and Tamar? The same thing, similar to what Boaz and Ruth. The two sons of Judah, they died. The second one did not do his work of redemption. Because also he didn't want to impair his own inheritance. What happened? The Lord struck him and he died. And Tamar came up with a plan. And that plan gave birth to what? Perez. Similarly, we see here the same thing. What was the goal in both of this? The goal is to perpetuate the name of the dead. The goal is this, which brings me to my final theme in this whole book, resurrection. That the name of the dead will continue. It was about the seed. And here we see house of Israel, house of Perez, and the seed. And that's why I came to a conclusion. I know a lot of people have said they favor Samuel as the author of this book. I want to favor David as the author of this book. Because there's a hand of David all over this, talking about house, harvest, seed. That speaks more about David. But don't quote me. Then we saw the union. And when the union came, what happened? There was a conception. She bore a son. Now the women did not turn to Ruth to bless Ruth. They turned to Naomi to bless Naomi. And they blessed her and told her that the Lord has not left you without a redeemer. Who was redeemed? Ruth or Naomi? They were all redeemed. Both Ruth and Naomi was redeemed. And they blessed her and told her, you have been redeemed. God has given you a blessing this day. He said, this son that's come to your house shall be a restorer of life, a nourisher of your old age. He said, because this is the reason. Your daughter-in-law, who works to you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to what? Has given birth to what? Him. Could it be that these women also are in anticipation and praying that this will be the seed, the true seed? I believe so. I believe that all of this book is pointing us to the true seed of Adam, the true seed that will redeem mankind. And finally, they ended with the genealogy of David. The story ended with a mention of Israel's, the ancient Israel's greatest king, David. Seems the writer of the book of Ruth is drawing our attention to the main point again and again, that it is the seed of David. That the woman who bore, that the son that was born is the seed of David. Now, it is important to note, as a roundup now, that when we see a book starts with the genealogy, it opens us up to understand the story, like the book of Matthew, like the book of Luke, helping us understand this is who this story is about. In this place, it didn't start with the genealogy. It ended with it. And ended with David. And the reason is this, is that the book is helping us to see what is going to happen next. This is the journey. This is what's going to be unfolding next. This will be the story of the true seed that has come to the house of Boaz. What's the final lesson here? And what's the application? I'll stop ranting now, and I'll go straight to the point. In the days when judges rule, we still have honorable men. Brothers and sisters, truly we are living in the evil days. Like Boaz, we're living in evil days. So the question is this: are we living as one who is righteous before the Lord? Can it be said of us, like Boaz, that we are honorable people, worthy people? In our homes, in our neighborhood, in our workplace, irrespective of how they want to describe it. I often said, my former boss will always say, "Oh, Olumide is a principled person." I get it. You mean I'm a Christian, right? But he doesn't want to say that. But irrespective of how he wants to describe it, can it be said of us that this person is worthy? Second, the book of Ruth has a companion in the New Testament, which is Colossians. Why do I say that? The book of Colossians can be divided into four things, and that parallels the book of Ruth. The book of Colossians started with the person and work of Christ in Colossians chapter 1. In Colossians chapter 2, we see the sufficiency of Christ. In Colossians chapter 3, it talks about who we are in Christ. And the book of Colossians ended up with instructions for Christian living. And that's what the book of Ruth displays to us also. That we have a worthy Redeemer in Christ. He alone is able to redeem us. He alone is worthy to break that scroll. When the close Redeemer chickened out and ran away, the story of Ruth tells us that there can never be anyone who can redeem a foreigner. We are foreigners. We were foreigners, rather. We hated God, wicked people, yet He bought us, soul and body. And it did not end there. He commanded us to go, live holy and blameless before Him. That is the book of Ruth. The person of Christ, the sufficiency of Christ, and living holy and blameless before Him as believers. I close with this. There's nothing wrong with us as believers trusting God and planning. Faithful planning means setting our heart on the Word of God to guide us. And brothers and sisters, I encourage us this day, like Naomi and Boaz, to commit our ways to the Lord, to commit our works to the Lord. Trust the Lord, and He will establish your plan. I hope that you go back and read this book and be captivated by the work of redemption, how a foreigner, a nobody, became one of the great-grandmother of the true seed of David. Just as we, as foreigners, have been brought in to the house of God, we have been bought with a price, and no one is able to do that which Christ did. And so let us rejoice in this hope that this book shows us, that the true seed that came, lived, died, resurrected, is coming again. And we have a hope that we will be united with him, just as those who have gone ahead of us are united with him right now. Let us pray.